You can be surrounded by people and still feel completely alone. That's the truth no one prepares you for as you grow older. The calls get fewer, the visits get shorter. The noise in the house fades not because it's peaceful, but because it's empty. One morning, you wake up and realize you've spent an entire week without hearing another human voice that wasn't coming from your television. And if that sentence hit a little too close to home, you're not alone. In fact, millions of older adults in the US, yes, right now we're silently going through this exact experience. But here's the thing. It doesn't have to be this way. What if I told you that there's a simple, overlooked truth, one powerful shift that can completely change the way you experience life after 60, 70, or even 80? And no, I'm not talking about joining a club, downloading an app, or moving to a retirement community. Those are just surface-level fixes. I'm talking about the real reason so many people feel alone as they age. It's not just the absence of people, it's the absence of connection, and more importantly, the absence of purpose. You see, loneliness isn't just being alone. It's waking up each day and feeling like you're invisible, like no one needs you, like you're just existing. That slow, invisible ache, it's what silently breaks people down more than any disease. And no one talks about it until now. Because today, we're going to break the silence. We're going to uncover the one thing that separates the people who feel energized, loved, and connected in old age from those who don't. It's not luck. It's not personality. And it's definitely not about being rich or popular. It's about a simple truth that almost no one talks about, but once you know it, you can start rebuilding a life that feels full again. A life where people look forward to seeing you. Where your phone rings not out of obligation but genuine joy. Where even quiet moments feel rich with meaning. This might be the most important video you watch this year, especially if you've ever whispered to yourself at night, I just don't want to feel alone anymore. Loneliness in old age doesn't start with an empty house. It starts way before that. It starts when you begin to feel like you're no longer part of the story. You used to be the one people called for advice. You used to be the one everyone came to during holidays, birthdays, hard times. Your opinion mattered. Your presence mattered. You mattered. And then, slowly, life begins to shift. Your kids grow up and build lives of their own. Friends you've known for decades move away or pass on. Work ends sometimes by choice, sometimes by force, and suddenly, the rhythm of your days changes. There's no office to go to, no team that needs you, no schedule that keeps you engaged. The silence creeps in not all at once, but subtly. A few days with no plans turn into weeks. Conversations shrink to quick check-ins. Even in a crowded room, you start to feel like a ghost. Not because people are cruel, but because you're no longer in the center of their orbit. And this is where most people make the mistake. They wait for others to notice. They wait for someone to knock on the door. They wait for the call, the visit, the invitation. But the truth is, after a certain age, the world doesn't come to you anymore. You have to go to it. And that's where the secret begins. Because the real danger of growing older isn't just being alone. It's forgetting who you are without others telling you. It's forgetting the feeling of being needed. And that loss of purpose, that's the root. That's the quiet poison. Studies have shown that the most powerful predictor of health and happiness in old age isn't wealth, diet, or even exercise. It's feeling connected. And connection doesn't come from proximity. It comes from meaning. Think about it. Have you ever gone a whole day without speaking and at the end of it felt like you were fading? That sense of drifting? That's not your fault. That's your brain, your entire nervous system crying out for engagement. Human beings were never meant to live in isolation. From the time we're born, we're wired to connect, to belong, to contribute. And when we stop contributing, when we stop being seen as essential, something inside us dims. But here's what most people never realize. You don't need to wait for someone to give you purpose. You can choose it. You can create it. And often it starts with one simple shift. Stop asking, "Who will reach out to me?" and start asking, "Who can I reach out to?" This one question can flip your entire world. Because the moment you become the one who checks in, the one who writes the letter, sends the text, shows up with a smile, you become the connection someone else is desperate for. And in giving that connection, you heal your own loneliness too. I know it sounds almost too simple, but it's not. Because what makes it powerful is that it puts the power back in your hands. No waiting, no guessing, just intention. Some of the happiest older adults I've ever met had very little in terms of money or family nearby. But they all had one thing in common. They made themselves useful to others. They taught, they mentored, they volunteered. Some started reading to kids at libraries. Others hosted a potluck every Thursday for neighbors. Some just made it their mission to check in on one person a day. And guess what? People started showing up for them too. Not because they were asking for help, but because they radiated something the world is starving for: presence. You don't have to be young to be important. You don't have to be surrounded by a big family to feel seen. But you do need to remember this. Your presence is still powerful, and it is needed more than you think. Right now, someone in your own neighborhood feels just as invisible as you do. Someone else is sitting at their kitchen table, wondering why no one calls anymore. What if you were the one who changed that for them and for yourself? What if, instead of shrinking back into the silence, you became the reason someone else smiled today? That's where the shift begins. That's where loneliness starts to lose its grip. Not through grand gestures, but through small, deliberate acts of connection. In Part 2, I'll show you exactly how to build this kind of meaningful connection from scratch even if you live alone. Even if you're starting late, even if you're scared it won't work. But for now, I want you to sit with this one truth. Loneliness is not a life sentence. It's a signal. A signal that you're ready to connect again, but this time, on your own terms. Let's talk about what it really takes to rebuild connection, and not just surface-level small talk, but the kind of connection that lights you up inside. First, you have to understand this. It's never too late. I've met people in their 80s who completely reinvented their social lives, their sense of meaning, their role in the world, just because they decided to try one new thing. That's it. One small shift. It didn't require technology, a big network, or even perfect health. What it required was courage. The courage to go first, to reach out before being invited, to say yes before the doubts took over. So here's the first action. Reconnect with just one person from your past. Think about someone you used to talk tone. Old coworker, a neighbor, a cousin, a friend from church. Someone who brought you joy, even if it was years ago. Write their name down and then reach out. No long explanation needed. Just a simple message like, "I thought of you today and wanted to see how you're doing." That one sentence can open a door. You'd be surprised how many people are silently waiting for someone to break the silence. And when you're the one to do it, you're not only reconnecting, you're reclaiming a part of yourself that was left behind. Now, second step. Start showing up where people gather with no expectations. That might mean the community center, a book club, a walking group, a local class at the library. Not because you're lonely, but because you're still curious. That's a mindset shift. You're not showing up as someone who needs something. You're showing up as someone who still has something to give. When you walk into a room like that, people feel it. They're drawn to it. And slowly, the connections start forming, not instantly, not magically, but through repetition, consistency, and kindness. The third step is powerful, yet often ignored. Give your time to something bigger than yourself. Volunteering is not charity. It's medicine. Studies show that seniors who volunteer even just once a week report lower levels of depression, higher levels of purpose, and stronger social bonds than those who don't. Whether it's helping at a school, a food pantry, an animal shelter, or even writing letters to hospitalized children, there is always a way to give that fits your abilities. And every time you give, you grow. You shift the focus from your own emptiness to someone else's need, and in doing so, you become the bridge. But perhaps the most important shift of all is internal. You have to start treating yourself as someone worth showing up for. Because here's the truth: when you love your own company, others learn to love it too. When you respect your own time, others start respecting it too. When you take care of your appearance and know to impress, but to express, you radiate self-worth. And that attracts people. That magnetizes warmth. Simple things. Getting dressed in the morning like you have somewhere to be, even if you don't yet. Making your bed. Preparing a meal and lighting a candle just for you. These are not luxuries. These are signals to your brain that you still matter. You're still worth the effort. And once you do that enough, other people start treating you accordingly. You'll start to notice the barista remembering your name, the neighbor waving a little longer, the group at the park inviting you over to sit. Connection starts with how you connect with yourself. And I know some of you are thinking, but I've tried before. I've reached out and gotten silence. I've joined things and felt invisible. I hear you. Rejection hurts. Feeling overlooked is exhausting. But here's the hard truth. Connection is a practice, not a guarantee. You don't do it once and expect fireworks. You do it again and again and again until your world starts to respond. Until the spaces you show up in begin to recognize your presence. Until the people you interact with start to realize you're not going anywhere, and then, one day, someone sits beside you and says, "I'm glad you're here." That's the moment everything changes. But you have to stay long enough to see it happen. Let me tell you about Henry. He was 76, widowed, no children, no siblings left. He told me he went 5 days once without speaking to anyone. Said the silence was so heavy it made his chest ache. But one day, he decided to volunteer at a local animal shelter. He didn't even like dogs that much, he just knew he needed to be somewhere. That one decision changed everything. The staff welcomed him, the dogs adored him, and over time, so did the other volunteers. He started getting invited to lunch, then game nights. Then someone asked him to teach a woodworking class. Now he mentors high school boys who never had a father figure. And he says, "Those boys don't know it, but they saved my life." That's the power of one decision. One step. One new space. You don't have to wait for the loneliness to pass. You have to walk through it. That's how it softens. That's how it lets go. In the final part of this video, I'll share the deeper truth behind all of this. The core reason some people stay lonely, even when they do everything right, and how to avoid falling into that invisible trap. Because there's one more piece of this puzzle that most people miss, and without it, all the connection in the world won't fill the void. So here it is, the truth most people never talk about when it comes to loneliness in old age. Sometimes, it's not just about who's missing from your life. It's about what you've never forgiven yourself for, because connection doesn't only come from what you do, it comes from how open your heart is to receive it. And if there's one thing that quietly poisons the soul more than isolation, it's the belief that you don't deserve connection anymore, that you've messed up too many relationships, that you waited too long, that it's too late to rebuild, that no one would want you now. These are the thoughts that live deep in the quiet moments, the ones we carry but never say out loud. Maybe you hurt someone and never made it right. Maybe you let pride keep you from calling when you should have. Maybe you just faded away from people, thinking they didn't care, but deep down, you were scared to find out they actually didn't. And so the walls built up, slowly, silently, until they became so tall even you started to believe that this is just the way life is now. But let me tell you something that may change everything. You are not unworthy of love just because your past is complicated. You are not undeserving of joy just because you've made mistakes or been distant. Everyone has chapters they wish they could rewrite. Everyone. But the people who find connection again, who rebuild vibrant, full lives in their later years, they all have one thing in common. They let go of the belief that they're beyond repair. They start fresh. Not by erasing the past, but by honoring it and choosing to grow beyond it. They say, "Yes, I could have done better, but I'm still here. I still matter. I still have time." And they open their doors again. They risk awkwardness. They allow small talk to lead to deeper moments. They give people the chance to surprise them. They forgive themselves for the silence. That self-forgiveness, that's the missing piece. That's what unlocks the heart again. Because if you believe deep down that you don't deserve love, no amount of volunteering or social events will make it stick. You'll find ways to pull away, to avoid, to shut down. But when you tell yourself, "I am still worthy of connection," the entire energy around you shifts. People feel it. They respond to it. You become someone they want to sit beside, someone they feel safe with, someone they remember. It starts with an internal choice, and you don't need years of therapy or a grand gesture to make it. You just need to say it out loud even if your voice shakes. I am still allowed to be loved. I am still capable of joy. I am still a part of this world. These aren't affirmations, they're declarations. They're reminders to the deepest part of you that your story isn't over, that the next chapter hasn't even been written yet. And you hold the pen. Let me leave you with this. A woman named Eleanor once told me something I've never forgotten. She was 87, living alone after losing her husband of 61 years. She said, "When George died, I thought the rest of my life would be silence. But then I realized if I'm still breathing, then God's not done using me yet. So I asked, what's the smallest thing I can do with love today? And I did that, over and over." Eleanor started baking cookies and leaving them on neighbors' porches with handwritten notes. She made phone calls to old friends just to say hello. She complimented strangers at the grocery store. Nothing big, just love, repeated. And do you know what happened? People started knocking on her door, inviting her to dinner, asking her for advice, not because she tried to be needed, but because she led with love, quietly, consistently. That's the real secret. The one no one tells you. Loneliness isn't just a condition, it's a message that you're not done yet, that there is more for you to give, more for you to feel, more life waiting on the other side of the door. But the first knock, that comes from you. So if today is quiet and you feel forgotten, remember this: you are not too old, you are not too late, and you are certainly not alone, not anymore. Because now you know the truth. Now you have the map. The question is, what will you do with it?